Any minute, we will be live. I think we're live.
Okay, great.
So welcome to Penny Parker Klostermann. It's so great to have you on the show.
I'm just thrilled to be here.
And your new book, your wonderful spider book, which I'm in love with, just launched 2 days ago.
Yes.
So wow, so Mazal Tov, as the Jews say. And you're going to run us through this, and then we're going to talk about your amazing writing career, how you got to it, and why, after success with nonsense fiction, rhymesicle, mimesicle, wonderful books, you've spun such a serious web here, but in an extremely captivating way. So a few words about Nan Songer and the Spider Lady, and a few words about the book, the illustrator, the editor, your agent, how you got to it, all in 30 seconds. And before we start, I forgot that I am Mel Rosenberg, and I am the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And they are bringing this show to us. So welcome, Penny. And tell us about your new book. Show everybody, brag about it.
I really will have to brag. It took a long time, and it's about a woman named Nan Songer, and she loved insects and spiders as a child. And when she was an adult, she learned that spider silk could be used in the crosshairs for the weapons of war. And so she decided to try her hand at this and ended up raising, she had over 10,000 spiders in her room in her home, including the babies. And we all know a lot of spiders hatch from baby eggs, from the eggs. And she learned how to extract their silk and get it perfect for the crosshairs makers. And World War II came along and lots of silk was needed. And she contributed to the war in a big way, to the victory of the war for the Allies. And her story is just amazing.
So it's incredible that you've written this epic book. And I want to take you back now to your childhood and run with you through, run because we're doing it over the next few minutes, and try and figure out what brought you to be a successful writer.
Um, I always loved to read, but given the option to play outdoors or read, I would usually play outdoors. But I would read in the wintertime. I lived in Colorado and um, read at night. And I just loved stories. And when I was in fourth grade, and I loved to write rhymes. When I was in fourth grade, I wrote a 26 line rhyming poem for class. And my teacher, Mrs. Ferguson, told me that she loved it. And my mom taught at that school too. And next thing I know, mom tells me she brought it to the teacher's lounge. She shared it all around the school. And you can imagine how that made me feel. That made me feel like I could write. And so, anyway, my life went on. I wanted to be a PE teacher, and I spent 26 years teaching. I taught some English and language arts and some computer, but mainly physical education. And at the end of that career, I sold books for a book distributor and went around to libraries in West Texas and showed them the books. I took them with me, lots of tubs of books. And while I was doing that, I got interested in writing. I'd had a small time where I was interested and wrote a manuscript in the bathtub, sent it to three publishers and got three rejections.
Oh,
So
hold on a second. You said you wrote it in the bathtub?
I did a rhyming
Well,
manuscript.
we'll get back to that. I have not had any of my interviewees talk about writing in bathtubs. They've talked about shower moments, but not writing in bathtubs. Let's get back to this. So you wrote, and the books you were selling were these picture books?
Yes.
Because the question always comes back to this. You could write, given your talent, for any age. and you've chosen to write for, let's say, 4 to 8 year olds.
I
Is this connected with your childhood?
It's more connected with, I mean, I loved my childhood books, but it's more connected with my job as a teacher. As a computer teacher or physical education teacher, I went to each classroom to pick up the kids. And more times than I can remember, the teacher was reading to them right before I came to pick them up. And they were so engrossed. And sometimes I got to hear snippets of those books. And I just thought, I think I could do this. And look at the children. They're so engrossed, and reading is so important. So over the long haul, that's what really got me inspired to write, was
So,
watching.
I'm intrigued now by your bathtub story. So why would you write stories in a bathtub?
Well, this was like 15
Then
years.
this might be your secret to success.
No, it might be. You never know. I've never written another one in the bathtub, though, but I do call that my bathtub manuscript. But it's not about the bathtub.
No, you sat in the bathtub taking a bath and writing for children.
Yeah, I had a notebook with me because 15 years before I got serious about writing and getting published, I thought, oh, I know I can do this. And I wrote this manuscript called The Imagination Situation, where the teacher would tell them to use their imagination for all these assignments. And this one kid would just do outlandish things. And when he brought these things into the classroom, it caused all kinds of problems. It wreaked havoc. And so I just jotted that down. I kept adding hot water to the bath, kept writing words, and I had that manuscript. And that's the one I sent out that I did not even revise. So I learned a lot in those 15 years by being a part of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, that you don't just write a book and get it published. You have to polish it. So that's my bathtub manuscript story.
And this book has never been published.
Oh no, I have gone
Really?
back to it, but
Okay.
um, it's
Well,
not.
you have to go back to it in the bathtub, Penny. That's the secret here.
Oh, that could be.
Okay, wonderful. So this is interesting. So it wasn't like growing up, like in my case, as a 4 or 5 year old, and having these idyllic moments with my dad and mom when they would read to me every night, and I grew up on specific stories, and they're still in my mind. This is not the case with you. This was kind of an adult thing you could write, and then you were struck by the intensity of the feeling of reading to children. You said, "Oh, I'm going to do that." That's wonderful. So, how did you figure out that you needed to join SCBWI? I think this is the biggest block for authors. Until the moment I realized that I had to go to SCBWI to a meeting, thinking that I was the greatest writer, and find out that I was among the worst. So how did you realize that you had to learn? This is, I think, a big moment.
The internet, and even though we didn't have social media to the degree we are now, where I could learn about it through Facebook or Instagram, there was information about that, but I had to go to the library and check out the book and read that. And so that's how I learned about SCBWI. And back then, Verla Kay ran the Blue Boards, and then SCBWI took over that forum. And so I got some information from that, but mainly the books that the library had, and I'd sit there because they were reference books then, and I couldn't check them out. So I'd sit there and make notes about all the publishers, and I just learned so much. I didn't realize.
You knew that you had to grow as an author.
Yes,
This is the big thing, realizing that you're not good enough.
yes, yes.
Fantastic.
I knew I had to do more than just ride in the bathtub.
Wonderful. So you took courses and you read critique groups.
Yes. At first, I sent stuff to different professional writers, and then I did find a critique group through the Blue Boards, and or maybe it was SCBWI forum at that time. But anyway, I found them, and they required an application. And, you know, I was scared to death, but I applied and I got in, and they really helped me grow so much. So much. The things they commented on were things I never thought of. And they were all the things that need to be in a good story.
I know exactly what you're talking about. For me, it was showing and telling, showing
Yes.
and not telling. And I'm saying, well, what is that? What is that? Oy vey, I better learn about it. But the wonderful thing is that you learned and you grew. And then when did you have your first success? How did that happen?
I signed, well, that first success really came from my Mars book, which just came out. And I submitted that.
It's a long journey.
Oh, totally long journey. I submitted that for the SCBWI grant and I got runner up. And so at that point, I had some polished manuscripts. And so I wanted to be a part of the Aaron Murphy Literary Agency, which now is part of Avitas Creative. And so I used that as a reference. I said, I'd like to use this as a reference because I got this grant. And so Aaron passed it on to Tricia Lawrence, and that was in 2013. And I sold my first manuscript, There Was No Dragon Who Swallowed a Knight, a couple of months later to Maria Mondugo at Random House. And
And you happen to have that book ready to show everybody.
oh, I sure do.
And that is a hilarious book. So I want to recap. So your goal, your road to success was you placed in a contest, and then you submitted with this in your query letter,
Yeah,
and you didn't know Erin Murphy, and she still read your query letter, and she still got excited. That's really unique.
I know because I mean, I felt like the manuscript was quality enough to get an SCBWI runner-up grant, but you know, I didn't know if it would make it through a query with an agency that was closed to queries, except for from a conference or a reference.
But this is incredible. You know, most of us get rejected dozens, hundreds of times until we find an agent. And you
Well,
found one.
I had submitted some manuscripts, including this one, the dragon one, to other, I mean, the Mars one, because
Yeah.
that was the one from the S to
But
other
but
agents. But I didn't, I backed off when I figured out I didn't really have submission ready manuscripts. But I did have about 15 rejections before I found my agent. But I think that's because I backed off.
that's that the Jews would call that garnished. That's nothing. To have 15 rejections and then an acceptance is really it's incredible. You
But
know,
I,
you're at the Harry Potter level here.
no, not that. I accepted pretty early on that I was wasting my time until I learned more. If I'd have kept submitting, I think I would have had a much bigger stack of rejections.
But that's even more terrific. So like you submitted, and then you said, okay, before I continue to submit, I better improve my stories, which is terrific. And I love the Dragon book. Could you read a little bit of it?
Oh,
Um,
sure.
it's such a cute I don't know what to call it. It's a fractured mother goose of sorts.
Yeah, and cumulative tale. I've always loved those, how the things build. There was no dragon who swallowed a knight. I don't know why he swallowed the knight. It's not polite. There was no dragon who swallowed a steed that galloped around at a terrible speed. Oh, how the dragon wished it would stop that clippity, clippity, clippity clop. He swallowed the steed right after the night. I don't know why he swallowed the night. It's not polite. And
I love it. And clearly, there's a very good meter and rhyme here. It's clear you knew what you were doing when you wrote that.
I checked out 25 retellings of There Was an Old Lady, and I picked out my favorite things about each one and tried to incorporate it into this. And one of the biggest things you need to do is a twist. And so my ending was my twist. And
The book has been out for several years. It's a very successful book. You can read the ending if you like.
okay, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So the dragon has burped out everything except for the steed in the night. Then, with all of the power that he could amass, the dragon burped out one last billow of gas. Burp! And with terrible speed, he burped out the steed. Clippity, 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 clop. Clippity, 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 stop. There was an old dragon who swallowed a night. Ah, just right. Good night.
Lovely. And then you went on to the Mars book is also a parody of a tale, if I'm not mistaken. And that one was published last year by Macmilla.
Yes.
You sure know where to publish, or at least Tricia Lawrence does. So a few words about the Mars book.
It's the one that I wrote way back when, like in 2011 or 12, and submitted for that grant. And it got a lot of rejections. And then I paid for this great critique at an SCBWI event, and an editor told me that Santa Claus needed more agency when the sleigh had a problem. And I reworked some lines, and that did it. And then COVID happened, so responses were very slow, but Macmillan ended up getting back to us and saying they wanted the book. Laura Godwin, the imprint Godwin Books, which I was thrilled about. And then I worked with her and Courtney Nash, who was a new editor on the scene. So Laura mentored her through this, and we had a blast. It was so much fun.
You had a blast. Wait, wait.
Um,
Another pun.
yeah,
Read the beginning of this Mars book.
okay. They didn't want any revisions, by the way. And I said, whoa, wait. I've got some now that I'm looking back at this. And the illustrator, she knocked it out clear to outer space. 'Twas the night before Christmas in far outer space. The merry old moon wore a smile on his face. The glitter and twinkle from millions of stars lent hope to our hearts on the red planet Mars. The stockings were hung in the spaceship with care, so surely, dear Santa, would make a stop there. Figgy was snug in her space cruiser bed, the tinkle of jingle bells filling her head.
Lovely. It's great. So people would assume that this is, what you do really well, and you're going to continue to write these wonderful rhyming parodies and spoofs with great sense of humor. And then all of a sudden, a serious spider book. This is a really serious buy the book. So how did this happen? And then let's talk a little bit about nonfiction because you do it so incredibly well.
I'm just as shocked as everybody else because literally a month before I came across Nan Songer on the internet, I was at a school visit and a young girl asked me if I ever wrote nonfiction. And I said, I'm not sure I ever will. There hasn't been an idea that grabbed my attention enough to put a lot of time into a book. And then I come home and I've been following Wonderopolis because someone had told me about it. It's a website that is for kids. They have a wonder of the day and they go into an exploration of the answer and the question. And it said, how did spiders help the Allies win World War II? And I had just read Chris Barton's book about dazzle ships, which is amazing. And I thought, I think I can do something with this. At that point, Nan Songer was not in the article. And I just kept reading more and more about it, and her name kept popping up. And so I guess what intrigued me is I was pretty afraid of spiders as a kid. I didn't want them near me. My grandma would tell us how in Texas, because I lived in Colorado, that she would get a pot of boiling water and make sure she wasn't too close to get it on the black widow because she was afraid of them. And that kind of put a fear in my mind. And so when I heard that this lady had over 10,000 spiders in her home, that alone, I just could not let go of. And then what she did with them and the measures she went to learn how to extract the very best silk, I thought this has to be a book. And I loved reading picture book biographies. There's, I think when I was a kid, everything like that was pretty dry, straightforward, but now they're just wonderful. And they're enough to learn about someone in a short book. And if I want to know more, I can go find a longer book, and the illustrations help so much. So that was an idea that I was drawn to that I couldn't let go of. And talk about a learning curve. That was very different for me. But I think we have a learning curve with every book we write. But that was a huge one because I hadn't written nonfiction.
Well, we'll talk about the research in a moment. This is a good place to mention your illustrators because it's so important to these books. So go back and the books that we've shown already, if you can mention the illustrators.
Okay, Dragon is illustrated by Ben Mantle, and he's in the UK. He's a very successful illustrator. It's so much fun to look at his Instagram. Merry Christmas, Dear Mars is illustrated by Estrela Lourenço, and she is in Ireland. And she also is very successful, but a little later on the scene than Ben Mantle. And so with all of my books except this one, they ask for input, but really they ended up picking who they thought was best. I didn't give them any of these names. And they knew who to pick. She did an awesome job. And for the spider lady, we actually did have a list of names, the editor and I, but some of them were very busy, and I cannot tell you how thankful I am that they were busy, because I don't know that anybody could have done illustrations like Anne Lambelet. I just don't think they could. She was perfect for this book. I'm more than thrilled.
So now is a good time to open up the book, maybe to read a little bit.
I love the title page. I love the end papers.
What's not to love?
Yes.
This is a gorgeous and wonderfully written book. Read a little bit at the beginning, perhaps.
Young Nan grabbed her net and collecting jars and rushed out the door to spend the day with her neighbor and friend, the well-known botanist and naturalist, Marie Meslon. And there's the gorgeous illustrations. While Marie was interested in plants, Nan loved bugs. Bugs that flew like butterflies and moths, bugs that crept and crawled like beetles, caterpillars, crickets, and spiders too. And then this is a quote from Nan Songer. As a youngster, I was fortunate enough to live in the same block with Marie M. Meslon. That is, I slept at home and lived the rest of the time with her. She installed a bit of knowledge of all growing things and a great love of nature and interest in insects in my young mind.
You got a great review from Kirkus. And one of the things they pointed out, and I think that that's very special here, is that you start the book where you want to start it. You don't have this thing that Nan was born here and she grew up there and she went to school and she studied this or that. And you start the book exactly where you want to start it. And it's a slice of life. And the other thing that really appeals to me as an ex-scientist, if there is such a thing, is the way that your back matter is not in the back. It's right there in the pages, and it's not sidebar. It's like, I don't know. It's right. It's part of the text. Can you show us some of that?
Yes.
I found that particularly well done.
Once Nan was older, she kept specimens not in one room, but her entire house. Bugs had taken over her life. When a visiting friend told her he used spiders to repair his surveying scope, Nan was hooked. He explained how he'd dropped a spider from an object, gathered the silk as it spun as it fell, and used it to replace the crosshairs, the tiny black lines in a scope that to bring an image into focus. An idea began to grow. And then in this corner, it says, spiders release drag lines that act like safety ropes. They can climb back up if they drop or fall. And so this was actually Carolyn Yoder's idea to move the back matter to the page it was relevant to.
One second. Carolyn Yoder is the editor at Calkins Creek.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if we mentioned it, but this is a book from Astra.
Yes.
I just mentioned it. Okay.
And then on another page, she's collecting spiders, and it talks about in a sidebar, the spiders Nan captured were of the species, and I'm going to butcher this, Aragopiarantia, I know I butchered it, which is the fancy name, commonly known as the black and yellow garden spider. I've got that. These spiders build a large orb web and with zigzags in the middle and are active during the day. And so we've all seen that kind of spider. Well, I don't know if we all have. It seems like most people have.
And then in the continuation of the book, you go on to talk about the technologies that she developed. And we're talking, I'm guessing this book is like for 5 to 8-year-olds.
Yes, it's like 2nd grade to 5th grade is a sweet spot, but
it's a picture book. I don't know whether kids in 5th grade are going to use it, but certainly 2nd, 3rd grade. Wow. And it has everything. It has the excitement of discovery, and it also has the technology, how she did it, and the excitement in being I'm going to call her a scientist because this is science. I don't really believe that you can judge science whether somebody went to the university or not. And it's quite incredible. But here's another thing that I want you to comment on. She did not go to university. So is there a message that you want to send to children that you don't have to go to university?
I think that if you're passionate about something as a child or even as an adult, that there are different paths to success if you want to use that as a career or use it in another way. In fact, your passion might lead you to learn a lot and then decide you do want to go to the university. But I really think we can learn so much on our own, and that your interest and passion plays a big part in what you can do and contribute to the world.
Okay, the parallel here in my mind, Penny, and I want you to comment on this, is that the authors that I interview, the 1 in 1,000 or the 1 in 10,000 that figure out how to write well enough to get traditional publishing deals, as you have, and to write amazing books. Well, I don't know what you studied in university, but you did not get a degree in writing children's books. And 99% of us don't. So all the people that I'm interviewing, including the agents and the editors and the publishers, they didn't study this at university. They are all autodidacts. Comment, please.
Yes, like I tell you, the idea of writing came to me as an adult. As a child, I didn't really think about that I could do what those authors had done. That didn't enter my mind. And so
What did you study at college?
I studied physical education because I loved it in high school. I told you I like to play outdoors. And then
Yeah.
the second teaching field was English,
Yeah,
but
but
I enjoyed
studying
teaching.
English is differently than doing a degree in writing children's books. I
Oh,
mean, there are a few places that offer degrees in writing and literature, specializing in children's books, but they are few and far between. And I don't know if among the 180 people I've interviewed, any of them did their bachelor's degree in that. So, in a sense, we're all autodidacts.
yes, yes.
Well, that's the first thing I wanted to ask. The second thing is it's a book. She succeeded because she was working for the military. And okay, yes, it was the Allies, and as somebody who is Jewish, I'm certainly so happy the Allies won the war. And but there is a thing here, Um, I don't know. Is there a thing or just me?
No, I think there is a thing because other people have mentioned that. And of course, we'd all love for there not to be wars, but the fact is there are and there have been. It's reality. And the war was a part of what she was doing, but she actually started learning this just to sell silk to crosshairs manufacturers. And then the war came along and there was a bigger demand. So, and she did say, I love my country. And her son had joined the military. So of course she wanted the war to end. And so she was proud of her contribution. But I wanted this book to be more about someone who took her childhood passion, kept doing it as an adult, and saw an opportunity to have it for a career and keep doing it the rest of her life. And yes, I was concerned about the fact that I was talking about weapons. Crosshairs go in weapons. They also go in other things like microscopes. And at the end, she sends in the author's note, she is sending.
Yeah. But Penny, this is the ironic thing. If she weren't involved, in the military element, she wouldn't be famous.
Yes.
Or
There,
or 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 not so famous, but now more famous with your book.
yes, there is truth to that. Just like the Rosie Roseteers and the Wasp, the women that flew, and all of those. And I watched that movie. I can't remember the title, about the troop or squadron or whatever they're called of Black women that went and sorted out the mail to get it to the soldiers because they weren't getting communication from their family. And so there were a lot of things that came up that people needed to do because of war. It created a different world with different kinds of jobs and opportunities for women and for men, but a lot for women at that point.
This is so I'm not the biggest fan in the world of nonfiction, probably because I was a scientist for so many years. But this is the kind of nonfiction that I do love, because you've gotten into her mind, the process of inventing and exploring and researching. Um, and, and you're not a scientist. So, it's kind of incredible. Hats off to you. How much research was involved in this? There must have been a ton of research.
Okay, so this is the stuff I printed. There was a lot
Yeah.
on the computer, and I got so into, and I felt like I was over researching, but it actually helped me when the book was coming together because I researched World War II again. I listened to Roosevelt's fireside chats to try to think, what was it like to sit there and to hear him talking about the war? Because she was listening. And I researched spiders to a huge degree, huge, because she was silking these spiders because she knew about their anatomy. She knew about their spinnerets and the silk glands. And I wanted to know all that too. So I made sure I didn't make mistakes. And even at that, I had a spider expert, and there was one thing that she clarified for me that made the story better, but and other things she commented on, but I learned a lot about spiders. I actually have an informational fiction manuscript I'm writing about spiders because
Me too. Oy vey, oy vey. We should compare notes. No, mine is fiction.
and so
Um,
yeah, lots of research.
yeah, spiders are great for picture books, and Mother Goose rhymes and so on. So, do you have any idea, Penny, what we're towards the end of the interview, unfortunately. Um, what am I going to ask you now? Because usually I ask people, what's your advice? But your advice is clear. Find your passion, realize that you have to improve, join a CBWI, ed critique groups, and enter contests, and be prepared to fail. And if everything else fails, it fails right in the bathtub, carefully. And what am I going to ask you now? I'm intrigued now because you've done this, morphing. You've cocooned, you're now a butterfly. Are you writing fiction now or nonfiction?
I'm writing both. I have 3 on submission that are all fiction. That was pre Nan Songer days.
Okay.
So I got those ready to go out, and then I'm working on that spider one, which will probably be shelved with nonfiction. And so that's what I'm working on. I do have one more bit of advice that was just put on the internet with the guy that I gave the advice to. He decided to create board games, and I told him, whatever creative endeavor you do, you need to think of it as going back to school. And you need to give yourself 4 years. And he ended up giving himself, he said, I actually went to high school and college because it's been 8 years. And so, that goes along with the other advice. Give yourself time to polish your
It,
creativity.
it took me almost a decade, and it might never have happened. And a lot of people that I interview, and these are people that were lucky as I was, and it did happen for them. But it's not uncommon to get more than 100 rejections. It's not uncommon to have to wait 7 or 10 or 15 years to break in. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yes.
And I want to congratulate you again on your book. It's got a long name: The Spider Lady, Nansonger, and
Her Arachnid World War II Army.
it's a bit of a tongue twister. Published 2 days ago by
Yes.
Calkins Creek of Astra, illustrated by Anne Lambelet. Who else should we mention? The editor at Calkins
Carolyn
Creek.
Bader is editor, and Thalia Leaf. I'm not sure exactly if I'm saying her name right, but she
And,
was.
and
And then the marketing person was Carrie McManus, and it's great, a really great team.
and your own agent, who seems to be doing a wonderful job, Trisha Lawrence. Ask her. I'd love to interview her. And what can I say? Good luck with this terrific book. It's the kind of nonfiction that I love. Hold it up so everybody can see it. A book that talks about everything, but basically about passion that somebody can take to the extreme. We didn't talk about this, but her house was actually a laboratory. Um, I don't know where she had place to sleep and have a family, but it was in between the spider jars.
How did she sleep with 10,000 spiders in her house?
And not only that, and all the food for spiders, you know. Oh, who opened the fruit fly can? Oh no.
Yes.
There must have been a lot of flying
And
and
white
crawling.
widows.
Yeah, in her house.
Yes.
Anyway, Penny Parker Klostermann, it's been wonderful interviewing you, and may you go from strength to strength. And let me know when your next book is coming out, and we'll find a good reason to have another interview.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this so much. I appreciate you asking me.
Everybody run out and buy this new book. It is really brilliant. The text, the illustrations. It's a showing book. It's a teaching book that doesn't teach. Um, you will want to read a lot more about spiders, even as an adult, after you've read this book. So Penny's been great. We're going to send everybody else home, and I'll just mention that I am Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network, and I've been here with Penny Parker Klostermann, who has disappeared. Bye, everybody. See you next week. Be safe.